and a big welcome back to the Wee Larder channel. Today I'm going to be making a delicious blueberry breakfast loaf. Now I'm actually using a cinnamon roll type of dough for the actual loaf itself, and it's filled with a cinnamon vanilla butter and loads of fresh blueberries. It is so delicious, and you can also make this recipe with stewed apples, stewed pear. You could also use strawberries, and if you can get your hands on fresh wild bilberries, even better, because they are so good. And it's a really nice recipe to make ahead of time, so you can make it and then have it for a couple of breakfasts the days after. It's actually lasted us 3 days and we still have a piece left, so you could even freeze some as well, or you could also half this recipe if it is too big for you. So let's get started on our delicious blueberry breakfast loaf. So for your delicious blueberry breakfast loaf, you're going to need the following ingredients, and if you want to half the recipe, feel free to go ahead and do so as well. So we're going to start by popping our milk into our pan. So we're going to be melting our butter into our milk here. So we're just going to add our butter in there. And we're just going to pop in our cinnamon as well. So we're just going to melt that down. So we're not looking to cook it at all, so we just want a really low to medium heat. It does take a couple of minutes, but you should have something that is fully blended together and looks something like this when it is finished. So we're now going to take that off the heat and leave it to cool completely before we get on to the next section. So once it's cool, we're going to pop it into our mixing bowl, or our bowl on its own if you're not using a mixer. I'm using a mixer because I find it easier with the dough hook to make the dough. Now we're just going to pop in the dried yeast as well. If you are using fresh yeast, you want to use roughly 3 times the quantity of the dried yeast. And we're just going to pop our mixer on just to blend that through. We're then going to add in our flour, so our plain flour and our wholemeal flour. Now you can pop these through the sieve as well if you have time to do so. I should have done that for this recipe, but for some reason I forgot to. So we're just going to mix those through as well, and we're then going to add in our sugar. And our egg. And we're also going to add in our pinch of salt there as well. And we've also added in our teaspoon of vanilla and cinnamon in there as well before we mix it through. And for some reason I forgot to get that on camera, so I do apologize about that. But what we're going to do is just mix it through for a good 5 minutes until the dough is completely formed. Now it should be not sticky and very manageable in your hands, so if you find it is still a little bit sticky and it's still sticking around the bowl, you're going to want to add a little bit more flour in there, but just please be very careful not to add too much, because we really don't want to add too much flour to this dough. With the machine it was roughly 5 minutes. It might be a little bit longer with your hands, but it does look something like this. So it's not sticky, it comes off of the dough hook very easily, and you can knead it away in your hands without it sticking to your hands. You can see it's really stretchy, and we're just going to form that into a bowl, and we're going to pop it into a greased bowl. So I'm just using the same bowl again because my bowl has come out really clean because it's not stuck to the edges at all, and I've just popped in a little bit of olive oil around the side of the bowl. So we're just going to pop it into the bowl there and cover that in cling film, and we're going to leave that for about 1 hour and 15 for my dough. So we're now going to make the filling for our bread, and we're also going to preheat our oven. So we want our oven set to 170, and that's for a fan oven as well. So we're going to pop our butter and our cinnamon and our vanilla into our bowl, and we're going to start mashing that through. We're then going to add in our sugar and just give that a good mash through until we have a paste type consistency. It should look something like this. So when our dough is ready, we're going to spread our chopping board with flour. So just make sure you have enough flour in there, and we're going to pop our dough on. So our dough is really smooth and very stretchy now, and it's just a really good consistency. So we're just going to pop that in there and just give it a good punch down just to get all the air out. And what we're looking to do here is roll it out to a large triangle. So basically as large as your chopping board or workspace will allow. You can kind of get a rough idea on the size from here. And then we're going to spread our filling into the middle of the dough. So we're going to start at the bottom and then just spread it from the top to the bottom, just all the way down. It doesn't have to be anything particularly neat, and then we're just going to spread it out to the edges a little bit as well. Something like that will do. And then we're just going to pop all of our fresh blueberries on. So if you just spread those out and kind of try to pop them on evenly. And as I said before, you can use other fruits. You could also use maybe some stewed apple or pear, or some strawberries might also work well, or even some blackberries as well. So we're looking to save about a couple of centimeters at the edge, and then we're going to start cutting our strips in. So we're cutting at a diagonal. And we're just going to work our way all the way up to the top, and we're going to save a bit at the top as well. And then we are going to do the same on the other side. So saving a bit at the top and the bottom, and then working our way all the way up. So you should have something that looks like this. And we're going to take our mixed egg and milk mixture, and we're just going to paste that on. So this is going to kind of work like our glue, and we're just going to use that to stick the dough down onto the blueberries. And then we're going to spread it onto the edges, and then put the first corners into the middle. So that's why we're saving that section there, because it just helps to seal everything in with a little bit more space. So we're just going to seal the edge of our bread there, and we're going to do the same at the top. And then we're going to work our way down. So we're going to put some egg mixture on the pieces that we've cut, and we're just going to put them one over the other like this. So it's really easy, just left, right, all the way down, and then seal it off, and then just sort of square it off with our hands. And we're going to slide that very gently onto our baking tray. So you want to pop it onto the baking tray, and we're then going to leave it for another 30 minutes to 45 minutes to rise again, and we're going to pop it in the oven. So if you just use your hands to shape it out to the shape that you're after, you can flatten it down a little bit on the top as well. So I just use my hands to smooth out the sides, and you should have something that's fairly well sealed and looks something like this. You will get blueberries coming out the top, but it's all part of how nice it looks in the end, so don't worry about things squeezing out the sides. So you should have something that looks like this, and then we are going to pop it in a warm place again to rise. And once it has risen, we're going to use the leftover mixed egg and milk to spread over the top of the loaf. Now you can use a pastry brush if you have one available. It is much easier to do that. I didn't have one available, so I'm just using my hands. I really need to remember to purchase a pastry brush. It is definitely something that I require in the kitchen. So we are going to pop this into the oven at 170 for 20 minutes, and then we're going to open the oven door, turn the tray around really quickly, and cook it for a further 15 minutes at 160. And that's a fan oven that I'm using as well. And it should look something like this when it is finished. So it has risen quite considerably. It's nice and golden brown, and it just looks delicious. And it's so lovely eating this straight away. Now, if you want to, you can leave it to cool slightly and then add the topping, which I'll show you how to do next. Just really easy, but you can also just eat it straight away without the topping as well. So all I'm doing is adding the honey into a bowl, and I'm adding in the cacao powder. So I was using raw cacao, but you can use just cocoa powder if you have that instead. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to give that a mix through. You can add a little bit more honey in there if you find that you have too much powder, or the other way around, a little bit more powder if it's too runny. You should be looking for something like this kind of consistency, so it's like a really nice runny chocolatey sauce. You could also use melted chocolate if you wanted to instead, and we're just going to put that across the bread. Now, as I said, you don't have to use this, you don't have to put this topping on, it's entirely up to you, but I find it just adds a little bit of extra sweetness, and it's super delicious with the blueberries. It works really, really well. If you were using apples or pears, you could also put like a caramel sauce over the top, that would also work well. Strawberries, maybe like a little bit of white icing would work really well, same with raspberries as well. So we're just going to slice a piece now. Now this is completely cool, but it is really nice if you have it fresh out of the oven. Even without the chocolate sauce, it is really, really good. A little bit of butter works really well with this as well. So you can see the blueberries inside are really mushy and delicious, and the chocolate sauce on top, and they both just work really well together. And the second or third day that you're eating this, you can also toast it or pop it in the oven to reheat it again. And it works really well with butter or maybe some yogurt on the side. It's just a really delicious breakfast. I'd love to hear what fruits you experimented with if you didn't use blueberries, so be sure to let me know in the comments down below. So I hope you enjoyed making your delicious blueberry breakfast loaf, and I hope it came out tasting delicious. I'd love to hear your feedback on it, so if you took a photo of it, please feel free to tag me on Instagram and I will share it up on my stories for everyone to see as well. So this recipe is actually going into my new cookbook, which I'm creating at the moment, and you might be watching this further down the line and it might already be available on my website at angiemilne.com. But it's going to be a seasonal cookbook, a seasonal family cookbook, with lots of delicious recipes throughout the year. And I also have a meal planning and budgeting section as well for you in the cookbook. So pop over to my website if you want to check that out. I also have my free cookbook available over there as well, which has 10 of my favourite traditional Scottish recipes. So you can find that over there too. I'm also going to be creating a free family cookbook very shortly as well, so that will also be available for you. So I hope you really enjoyed this recipe, and please feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you subscribe and click that little bell next to it, I will see you guys again soon. So take care, lots of love, bye bye.